Congressman, it's great to have you. Let's start, I guess, with the history that's being made and why it's important. You've seen some Republicans try to say, look, he's out of office now, so there's a lot going on. Why do we need to do this? And what is your answer to that?
Chris, thank you for having me on. This was, as we have argued and as we intend to show, the worst presidential crime against the Republic in American history. And the violence was terrifying and overwhelming. 5 people died. A police officer hit over the head with a fire extinguisher. Police officers beat up, grabbed, pushed, shoved, jostled. We saw some really extraordinary things that day. But what America needs to understand, of course, is that Wednesday, January 6th was not some random arbitrary day chosen by the president and the organizers of this rally. This was the day that Congress met in joint session, the House and the Senate, to count the Electoral College votes that had been certified by 50 states in the District of Columbia. So this was the very last step in the ratification of the popular vote, which went more than 7 million votes for the Biden-Harris ticket, and the Electoral College vote, which was 306 to 232, the exact margin actually that Trump had won by back in 2016, which he declared to be a landslide. So this was the last opportunity, and as we find out more and more every day, the president was willing to use any means, unlawful, lawful, lawless, violent, whatever. He was willing to incite insurrection against the United States in order to nullify the actual Electoral College vote that was to be counted, and to try essentially to derail that election and to get himself reinstalled as president of the United States. And so that is a ghastly crime against the Republic. One thing that I want to point out, Chris, is that impeachment is not nearly so much about the past as it is about the future. The framers of the Constitution put impeachment, conviction, and disqualification from further federal office holding in the Constitution to protect the Republic, to preserve the Constitution. That's why it's in there. President Trump or any other Trump who's impeached and convicted does not spend a single day, a single hour, or a single minute in jail. It's not a criminal prosecution. It is a protective civil action to guard the Republic against someone who has committed high crimes and misdemeanors against the people and proven himself to be a danger to the country.
That remedy you mentioned, which is in the Constitution and also in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, of course, crafted by members of Congress in the wake of the worst insurrection and rebellion the country ever faced. That is the Confederacy. It's very clear in that part of the 14th Amendment, which you cite in the article and in the impeachment language, that this disqualification idea is present throughout the architecture of the Constitution precisely for this reason. And it strikes me that it's an interesting counter to the Democratic argument that was made, small d Democratic argument in the last impeachment trial was, well, there's just going to be an election in 9 months. Do you really want to do this? That really isn't at issue here, is it?
Well, we were founded as a constitutional democracy. We overthrew monarchy and the idea that the government belongs to the king or one man and his friends. According to the framers' vision, those of us who aspire to and attain to public office are nothing but the servants of the people. And the minute that we violate our constitutional oaths and begin to usurp the government for our own purposes and commit high crimes and misdemeanors against the government, that is the moment that we forfeit our public office. Nobody has a constitutional right to be there. And the framers wanted to create a lot of ways to separate ourselves from people who were a danger to the continuation of Republican rule. And that's why we have a Republican guarantee clause. That's why we have a peaceful transfer of power. What happened on Wednesday, January 6th was a direct attack on the peaceful transfer of power under the Constitution.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.